I had been in love with him for nearly 3 years before I even realized it. It wasn't something that happened overnight, and it wasn't something I could easily pinpoint. It didn't come in grand gestures or sweeping moments of passion. It was subtle, a quiet, persistent feeling that grew as I spent more time with him, a feeling that started as simple friendship and eventually bloomed into something I couldn't ignore. His name was Noah, and he was my colleague, but he felt more like a companion, a confidant, someone who understood me in ways no one else did. We'd met at work, both of us starting at the same time in the marketing department of a small but growing company. At first, he had seemed like any other colleague, polite, professional, a little distant, but not unfriendly. But over the months, I found myself looking forward to our coffee breaks together, our casual chats in the hallway, our quiet shared lunches at the local deli. There was something about him, something that pulled me in. He had this calm, unassuming way about him, an energy that was steady but not overwhelming. He didn't try to dominate conversations, and yet, when he spoke, people listened. He wasn't the loudest or the most outgoing in the office, but he was undeniably present. And over time, I realized that it wasn't just his presence in the room that I found comforting, it was his presence in my life that I had come to rely on. It started small. I'd catch myself smiling when he walked into the room, a little flutter in my chest when he asked how my day was going. And when he'd laugh at something I said, a genuine, deep laugh that made me feel like I'd just made the best joke in the world, I felt this warmth spreading through me. But I ignored it. I told myself that it was just admiration, that he was a friend, and that was enough. Friends didn't need to be anything more. I didn't need to make this complicated. But the more time we spent together, the harder it was to ignore the truth. It wasn't just admiration anymore. It wasn't just a passing attraction. I had fallen for him. Deeply, quietly, but surely, and for months, I kept it to myself, afraid of what it might mean if I said something. What if I ruined everything? What if he didn't feel the same way? What if this wonderful, easy friendship turned into something strained and awkward? I wasn't willing to risk that. We continued working side by side, building a solid rapport, laughing over silly things, supporting each other through deadlines, and sharing stories from our lives outside of work. But as much as I tried to ignore it, the feelings never went away. They only grew stronger. Then, one evening, something changed. It was a Friday, and we had stayed late to finish up a project. The office had cleared out, and it was just Noah and me, sitting across from each other in the nearly empty conference room. I had stayed behind to wrap up some last-minute work, and he had volunteered to help me with the presentation slides. We were the only ones left, and the late hour had made the usual office noise fade away, leaving behind a comfortable silence between us. We were talking about our plans for the weekend, light conversation to fill the quiet, when suddenly, he paused and looked at me, really looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. "Lena," he said, his voice quieter than usual, "I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I really appreciate you. I mean, not just as a colleague, but as a person. You're one of the most genuine people I've met, and I'm lucky to work with you." I froze. I wasn't prepared for this. It was a simple compliment, but it made my heart race, and I could feel a wave of warmth flooding my chest. His words were so sincere, and they made me realize something I had been trying to avoid for so long. I had fallen in love with him, and I had to say something. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. This was the moment. I could either tell him the truth, or I could let it all go. But I couldn't let it go anymore. Not after everything we had shared, not after everything he had become to me. So, I did the only thing I could. "Noah," I started, my voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to say. Something I've been feeling for a while. I know we've been friends, and I've kept this to myself for a long time because I didn't want to complicate things, but I can't keep pretending anymore." He furrowed his brow, his expression turning serious as he listened intently. I think I've fallen in love with you," I blurted out, my heart pounding. "I know it's complicated, and I know we're friends, but I can't ignore it anymore. I don't expect anything from you. I just couldn't keep it inside any longer." The room felt like it had shrunk, the silence between us stretching, and for a moment, I thought I had made a mistake. Maybe he would laugh, maybe he would pull away. But he didn't. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, his gaze soft, almost as if he was processing my words. Then, slowly, he reached across the table and took my hand in his. "Lena," he said softly, his voice filled with something I couldn't quite place. "I've been feeling the same way for a while. I just didn't know how to say it. I didn't want to make things weird between us, and I never wanted to make you uncomfortable. But I'm glad you said it first. Because I've been afraid that I'd lose you if I said anything." My breath caught in my throat, and I felt the weight of his words settle deep in my chest. I had been so afraid of this moment, so terrified of saying something and losing everything, but here he was, saying what I had longed to hear. "You mean a lot to me, Lena," he continued, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I don't want to complicate things either, but I can't keep pretending that I don't feel this way. I've been falling for you too, in a way I never expected." I could hardly believe it. For so long, I had convinced myself that this feeling was one-sided, that I had to bury it for the sake of our friendship. But now, as he spoke, I realized how much I had misjudged the situation. The love I had kept hidden for so long wasn't just mine to carry. It was mutual, and that realization changed everything. We sat there, holding hands across the table, both of us processing the magnitude of what had just happened. There was still uncertainty, still the quiet fear that came with moving forward, but it didn't matter. We had spoken our truth, and in doing so, we had opened a door to something new, something that neither of us had expected but both had secretly hoped for. "I don't know what happens next," I said, my voice trembling a little. "But I don't want to let go of this." "Neither do I," he replied with a soft smile. "Let's take it slow, together." And just like that, everything changed. The love that had been silently growing between us for so long was now out in the open, unburdened by secrets or fears. And while there were still challenges to face, I knew that with Noah by my side, we could face them together. Sometimes, love doesn't come in a rush. Sometimes, it takes years to realize it, to find the courage to say it. But when it does, it's worth every moment of waiting.